The Great Debate would like to thank all of the candidates who participated in this historic event that was hosted and moderated by Detroit children. We also like to thank all of our sponsors. A special thanks goes out to our premier sponsor, Attorney Michael Fortner of Spectrum Legal Services. We also like to thank What's Happening in Urban Education, the Telford Telescope, Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, the Detroit Native Sun, who has been enlightening the community with helpful news and information that's not readily found in mainstream media for nearly 20 years, Motor City Apparel, a registered trademark. Get your Motor City sportswear. Greenfield Market, everyone's neighborhood supermarket. And Imperial Market with 5 locations to serve you. We also like to thank all of the children that participated. Amari, age 15. Sincere, age 9. Marquise, age 11. And Jaleel, age 11. Thank you, children, for doing such a great job in putting on a historic event.
I'm John Telford. I'm a former superintendent. I'm one of the sponsors of this operation here. And I would like to make just a couple of introductions. I'd like to introduce Omari Bayi, who's sitting over there. Raise your hand, Omari. He's an author. He's got a great book coming out. And I would also like to introduce Scotty Bowman, who's sitting right over here. And Scotty is running for the Michigan School Board. He's running for the state school board. I'm supporting him. We got to get him elected because he's a very progressive guy. He's taught for 25 years. And now the young man is going to start the show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Great Debate. My name is Sincere Lockhart. I will be one of your moderators tonight. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I am 9 years old. I am in 4th grade. I have a 3.8 grade point average. I play football. I'm a student athlete, and I'm also a self-proclaimed student activist. So I'm going to make sure that we get the right people on the board. Thank you to our sponsors, Michael Fortner of Spectrum Law Firm. That's my lawyer. Let me introduce you to some of my team.
Hello, my name is Amora Unite. I am 15 years old, and I am now residing at the Lions Academy. I am here on behalf of the Curvy Girl Project, which is also one of the sponsors here today, and I am so glad to see all of these faces, and welcome to the Great Debate.
All right.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jalil Norton. I'm a student from Palmer Park Academy, and I have a 3.8 grade. And we are here to get the right people at this Great Debate Board meeting today.
My name is Marquise Lockhart. I have a 3.8 to 4.0 grade average, and I play basketball, sometimes football, but mostly basketball. I joined this team called the Junior NBA. My teams were the Thunder and the Pacers. And welcome to the Great Debate. Let's get this debate started. I want each candidate to go down and tell them a little bit about yourself.
We're going to start with Miss Aaliyah Moore. 2 minutes.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me? My name is Aaliyah Moore. I am a product of Detroit Public Schools. Came out in 1998. The state came in 1999. Fast forward, I am a mother of 2. One graduate from Cass Tech 2020, and I have currently a 9th grader at CMA. I started off as a parent, quiet parent, volunteer all day long, but wouldn't say anything. With the closure of Oakman Orthopedic back in 2013, that ignited the advocacy in me. I advocated for that school. Sadly, it was closed. Sadly, those kids were displaced. Fast forward throughout the years, I continue advocacy. not just for my 2 children, but the 48,000. And I continue to do it to this day. I attend all board meetings, committee meetings. I listen to conversations and lack of.
All right, can you hear me? Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremiah Steen. I'm the executive director of the Steen Foundation, which is a youth-led philanthropy in the city of Detroit. My focus really is to ensure that all young folks play an active role in their education. And so my one huge aspect of the reason why I'm running is because I want to make it easier for nonprofits to play an active role in out-of-school time and after-school time programming. And then also, I'm a believer in generational equity and representation. So from boomer to zoomer, everyone should have a representative on the governing body. So right now, youth who are between the ages of 12 to 27, they currently do not have someone on the board who is serving their interests and speaking to their values. And so my hope is to serve in that space and be the representative. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to answer some questions.
Good evening, Detroit. My name is Sharice Butler, and I'm a proud native Detroiter. I grew up on the east side of Detroit back in the early 90s, and I graduated King High School in 2001. Since then, I've gone on to study at Columbia University in the city of New York, as well as Union Theological Seminary. Currently, I serve as the Senior Vice President and Executive Director of City Year Detroit. We are an education-based nonprofit here in the city where we serve 14 of the most underserved communities here in Detroit. Those schools are in the Pershing, Osborne, East English Village, Central, and Cody High School neighborhood. I am running because I believe that every child in every neighborhood should receive an excellent education here in the city of Detroit. I know that DPS-CD produces excellent young people because I am a product of DPS-CD. So I'm fighting for smaller class sizes and additional tutoring and mental health resources in our schools. One other thing about my background is that I've been a lifelong community activist in the education space. So this is work that I've been doing over the last 10 years here in Detroit. And I look forward to working with all of the candidates here on the board and even beyond. Thank you so much for your time.
Good evening. My name is Richard C. Clement, and I'm running for school board because I love the kids. I think we got some wonderful children in the city of Detroit. I'm a product of DPS. I graduated from Mumford High School and pretty decent athlete, and then I learned how to play an instrument the last year I was in school, and finished Alabama State University, degree in computer information systems, where I came back and worked in government and did a lot of programming on the big mainframes and the micros, and then I got into teaching. And I started teaching people how to program computers, build them, websites and programming and all the good stuff there. And then politics happened when I started working for George Cushenberry as a legislative aide, and I helped him with a lot of issues in Lansing. And while I was in Lansing, during the time when the emergency manager came in, there was a lot of glee going on because they enjoyed cutting on the Detroit public schools. And they thought this emergency manager was the greatest thing since Christmas. I know he was full of crap. And they robbed the teachers, they robbed it. But my goal is to bring swimming back into the school, to expand our footprint at Davis Airport. You know, we want to combine the aviation program with the fire department. And what that would do is that you'd be training firefighters and pilots. You get upgraded equipment at City Airport, and you can get bigger jets in, okay?
You got 30 seconds left.
30 seconds, 2-minute drill, okay. And I want to get teachers back into the pension system because that 401k is a bunch of garbage, okay? You vote for me, I'll fire it up for you, okay?
Thank you, Brother Clement. Good evening, everyone. My name is Boyd White III. I want to thank Dr. Telford and his amazing staff for putting this together. As it relates to my background, I am a Detroiter. I was born over in the actually southwest Detroit area. We moved to the west side when I was about 5 years old. Grew up in the 7 to 8 mile Schaefer area, Schoolcraft and Southfield area. went to Winship, Vandenberg, and Bobian Middle School under the great Dr. David Porter. Then I went on to Cass Tech, graduated in 1997. Went on to the University of Michigan, where I graduated in 2002. Detroit for me was a mixed bag. It was a lot of sunny days, but I grew up at the end of the crack epidemic. There were a lot of dark days as well. I'm one of the young people that some people would look at, and if you knew me one way, you would say there's no way he would be sitting here right now. If you knew me another way, you would say I knew exactly where he was going to be. And so it's because of all of those things, I put them together to say, I want to be a part of the revolution that results in Detroit becoming one of the greatest cities again. And in order to do that, we've got to push what's happening forward in our educational system. For me, I want to fight for equitable funding. I want to fight to end chronic absenteeism. I want to fight to close the achievement gap. And I want to fight to ensure that our students, when they graduate, are what I call life ready, whether it be a college degree, whether it be a trade, whether it be training in entrepreneurship. And that's what I'm here to fight for. I love my little brother right there. And I want to just thank all of our candidates for all the hard work. I feel like we're a cast. We've been together so long. And thank you for all the hard work they've done. I've learned so much. And Dr. Telford, I look forward to learning more tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you. My name is Tucson Knight. Thank you, Dr. Telford, for having this for us. Truly appreciate it. Thank you all for taking time out on a Friday to come be with us. Thank you, Valerie Lockhart and Katrina Brown.
Excellent.
As well. Thank you very much. I just want to start, growing up, I got kicked out of 11 different schools. Ended up going to a school, a HBCU, small Christian school in Oakwood University in Huntsville, Alabama. And there is when I learned about the importance of somebody standing in the gap for me, because someone was able to help me pay for college, give me a place to stay, and that changed my life. I was at a school where first time I seen people that looked like me take education serious. So when I ended up leaving Oakwood University, I came back because Oakwood instilled in me to enter to learn, but you depart to serve. So I came back to the city of Detroit, and ever since I've been back, I've been serving my community. I started a youth mentoring program called Caught Up, and we've been on the east side working with kids in Southeastern, Denby, East English Village, Osborne, and we've helped over 150 young men get into college. 150 young men that would not normally go to college, we were able to get them into college. As well as I currently work for Wayne County Juvenile Youth Services, where I manage a $27 million budget, helping keep young people out of the juvenile system. So the goal of my department right now is to keep young people from being incarcerated.
You got 30 seconds left.
Thank you, sir. And I'll end with, I've worked at Detroit Public Schools as a dean, as an attendance agent, and as a behavior interventionist. I've done the work, and I'm here and running because I want to continue to advocate for our young people. So please vote Tucson Night, November 5th. Thank you.
Let's go.
Again, hello. My name is Taverin Joe. I'm a longtime Detroiter, born and raised in Detroit. I went to Malcolm X Academy. I then left the district in 2008 because of the emergency management closing schools left and right. So I went to University High School in Ferndale. And then after that, I went to Western Michigan University, got my bachelor's degree in English, inspiring educator. And right now I am working at the post office. I have a professional experience working with students as a paraprofessional and reading interventionist at a charter school in Highland Park. Public education has always been my passion. As a member of BAM, I have fought for equal quality public education since I was 11 years old. Organized walkouts at Malcolm X Academy to fight the school closures that kept Malcolm X Academy open. I joined the teacher strike in 2006, the picket line demanding better pay, books, supplies, and smaller class sizes. Most recently is the fight against the fight for COVID safety protocols to keep all students and their families safe during the pandemic. In 2017, I served as the president of the Aspiring Educators of Michigan, the MEA. My work with the Aspiring Educators included recruiting teachers into the education profession at the college level. As president, I call for the
You got
student.
30 seconds
All right.
left.
Well, I'm running for DPS-CD school boards to restore the community's voice, and we need it. I'm not a rubber stamp. I won't accept the status quo. Vote Tabor and Joe, November 5th.
Hi, my name is Nicole Conaway. I've been a Detroit Public Schools teacher since 2006, and since that time, I've also been a leader in the fight for equality in public education and for equal pay benefits and respect the Detroit students and teachers deserve. As an organizer with BAM, the Coalition to Defend Affirmative Action and Integration in Immigrant Rights, and fight for equality by any means necessary. I have organized to oppose and to defeat school closures. I led the teacher sick-outs and walked out with students to end emergency management. I have fought for COVID protections for students and staff. And for myself, specifically in requesting ADA accommodations because of my underlying health conditions to keep myself safe. And as a result, Dr. Vitti and the board weaponized those, as they have against many teachers, and fired many teachers, weaponized them against me, and terminated me as well. They mistakenly thought that that would get rid of me and silence me or stifle my leadership, but it has only made me more determined. I know that if the current board and Dr. Vitti get away with doing this to me, they will continue to abuse the rights of teachers and students even more. So I know that my fight is a fight for every teacher, school support staff member, student, and member of our community who has ever been abused, mistreated, or retaliated against for standing up for themselves. This is a fight for all of us. I'm running to restore real democracy and bring the power of the movement to the Detroit School Board.
You got 30 seconds left.
I will end rubber stamping of the Vitti-Duggan agenda to downsize and privatize our schools, and the second-class treatment of Detroit students, and defend public education for all, including full services for special needs students, expand bilingual services, and defend immigrant students and their families. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Ida Short. I am a former school board member who's coming back to continue the work that we've done under the emergency managers that we were, unfortunately weren't allowed to do. But we fought the emergency managers, and the main thing that we got so far has been the fact that we were able to keep Detroit Public Schools a public school. Mm-hmm. The fight that we did was long and hard. That's all I can say, because it would take too much time to go through all the things that we did. But I am an educator. I teach many of the students from Detroit Public Schools who come to Wayne County Community College to learn English. I'm an English teacher there. I have a master's in reading and urban education. I also have a doctorate in community college leadership. My dissertation was on looking at African American men and how community colleges can help them come into the community college and stay and graduate. We need a pipeline from the high schools, really junior high, to the community colleges for our African American students and all the students, frankly. But the African American student, male, represents 0.01% of the student body at the college level, nationally speaking. I was the vice president of Detroit Public Schools and the chair of the parent and the audit committee, so I can read a budget and I can read the contracts. Under the emergency manager, Robert Bob had a bad habit of submitting—
You got 30 seconds left.
Thank you. A lot of papers to us the last minute. But see, I like to read. So I'd be up to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning reading and going over the things that were true and not true and talking to them about it. I was the chair of the plan to get free breakfast and lunch for our kids. You may not know this, but you got free breakfast and lunch not because of the current governor, but because of me and the work that I did. The board did support me in that work, and I also want to just say—
Sorry, you ran out of time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher Johnson, and a little bit about me. I started in Detroit Public Schools in 1971. I moved here from Royal Oak Township, just on the other side of 8 Mile, and I have been in Detroit Public Schools. I completed my education with Detroit Public Schools. I graduated in 1983 from Redford High School. I went to Crockett Vocational School where I got vocational training, left there, went to Highland Park Community College, but I enjoyed the hospital so much that I was able to get a job in 1982 before I graduated. So I just decided to finish that training that I had. I worked as a surgical tech, and I've also worked, I started as a nurse assistant, surgical tech. I worked as an x-ray tech. And then I worked as a health technician for the VA where I retired in 2013. I have been doing community work. I am president of Bagley Community Council, which is one of the largest neighborhood associations in Detroit. And I have been doing community work for, I can't remember the number of years. I also currently, I volunteer at different schools. Right now I'm currently volunteering at Bagley Elementary. If you come out there every day, you'll see me out there making sure the kids get into the school safely, greeting the children, and I spend time volunteering inside the school, stepping in whenever they need me. And basically, that's it. I have been an advocate for education. I taught high school for 5 years, and I was also an instructor at Lawton Business School. I started there as a substitute. I think it had to be around 2000, and then from there, in 2003, they put me at one of their charter schools in Inkster as a high school teacher. I taught medical assisting, medical billing, and health, and spent 1 year of film appreciation. I don't know how they got that one out of me, but
You got 30 seconds left.
I have always been an advocate for young people, and I will continue to do so.
The Great Debate would like to thank all of the candidates who participated in this historic event that was hosted and moderated by Detroit children. We also like to thank all of our sponsors. A special thanks goes out to our premier sponsor, Attorney Michael Fortner of Spectrum Legal Services. We also like to thank What's Happening in Urban Education, the Telford Telescope, Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, the Detroit Native Sun, who has been enlightening the community with helpful news and information that's not readily found in mainstream media for nearly 20 years, Motor City Apparel, a registered trademark. Get your Motor City sportswear. Greenfield Market, everyone's neighborhood supermarket. And Imperial Market with 5 locations to serve you. We also like to thank all of the children that participated. Amari, age 15. Sincere, age 9. Marquise, age 11. And Jaleel, age 11. Thank you, children, for doing such a great job and putting on a historic event.
Good evening. My name is Ken Snap. I am born and raised on the east side of Detroit. My family moving from St. Cyril and so Harper and Van Dyke area. Then we moved over to around Moross in Morningside area. So Burden is my street in Moross, right behind St. John. So I was over there for over 20 plus years, and until I went to college after Cass Technical High School. After that, I went to Notre Dame College. Came back after playing football for a stint, got involved in politics, and here I am. But I like to focus on what's pertinent right now, and that is policy, policy, and policy. We have to understand that we have to focus on following the money. If you pay attention to the contracts that exist right now, over $400 to $500 million go to contractors. Who is paying attention to what contractor gets what contract? Are they actually following through on that contract? Who is supporting the person in place, which might be VD? If you're getting $500,000, I keep saying you're going to make sure you get $500,000 again and again and again. You're going to make sure the people are in place. We have to follow the money, okay? That's very important. I also want to focus on doing an early childhood initiative where we get literacy at the forefront of the education. People continue to talk about the literacy issue in Detroit, but we don't have any really sustainable answers. Now, they say $2,000 is going to get these kids to read. That's not really going to happen. I want to focus on making sure we tackle early childhood initiatives where we give parents in the community literature and the proper curriculum to get students started early, because you cannot teach a child in the first and second grade their ABCs, 1, 2, 3, and their primary colors. It starts at home, and we have to focus on that. So again, my name is Ken Snap, and I'm running for school board. So remember, November 5th, fill in Ken Snap, November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Faustine Amara Waname. I am a candidate for the Detroit School Board. Just to give you a little bit of my background, my father, he immigrated here from Nigeria in the 1970s after the Biafra War and married my mother. I was born in Kalamazoo, but we moved to Detroit when I was 5 years old. Went to Kyneton Elementary School, Hadley Open Middle School, Martin Luther King High School, graduated in 1998. I was in the Center of International Studies and Commerce program at King, and from there I expanded. I went to Michigan State, finished a semester in Washington, D.C. I was actually there during 2001, interning for the International Trade Administration. From there, in my rightful 40s, I've traveled to 30 different countries. I've started a business in Senegal and also in Nigeria. When during COVID, I was actually in Senegal, so the schools were open there. So I took my son from here, and we went to Africa. He went to school for the entire year that COVID was closed here. The kids were online here, so my son was able to get a dual education. When we were in Africa, he was exposed to 6 different languages per day. He was able to study karate at the age of 4. When I brought him back to America and it was time to put him in Detroit Public Schools, I couldn't even find a school that offered French besides Flicks. I actually had to go to Canada and look at other places to try to find him something to keep that French going. Finally, I just found him the French Institute of Michigan.
You got 30 seconds left.
Make a long story short. But when I came back from Africa and put my son back in DPS, I realized that the school system is totally different from when I was a child. They're exposed to much more diversity, much more culture. He goes to Latino school, which speaks 80% Spanish. So having that interpretation in the classrooms is very, very important. The dynamics of Detroit Public Schools have changed. We have over 7,000 immigrants in the school system.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Gibson. A quick background, after dropping out of Northwestern, I eventually went back to school. Well, not actually just went back to school. I went to Atterbury Job Corps, in Indianapolis. I got my GED there, came back home, went on to get a degree in sociology from Wayne State University, and from there I went and received a master's in education. And the reason why this is important, because it also gave me ability to look and see and understand what our young people are going through in that background. Now, after all that, after working at Lafayette Clinic, after being a social worker in foster care, my job was to reunite families, so I had to deal with those families who are having some very hard times out here in our community. As I was working for Lafayette, in fact, I was there the day it was closed. That was a traumatic experience. But it also guided me into one of, I think, the most pivotal point of my career. It gave me a part to be a part of Malcolm X Academy. Dr. Clifford Dean Watson, back when there was a conspiracy to destroy black boys, if you all remember that far back. That was one of the reasons we had male students come, and we developed it, the Malcolm X Academy. And it was through, in 1999, when the African Center Schools came online, we went from 99 to 2023 before I retired. But it's important that you know that in 1997, Detroit News said, Detroit public schools soar. Why? Because we were on our job. Detroit public schools went from middle of the pack to number 1 in the state of Michigan. And I helped with the crew to make that happen. The reason why I'm running after being retired for 11 years is because I've seen the devastation that we have done, that has happened to Detroit Public Schools. I was with the impacting for emergency manager, so I'm now coming out of retirement. I think it's time for us to go back and remember how we did well. And I think I'm qualified to understand what curriculum, what teacher-parent relationships are all about,
I'm sorry, but
and
you
administration.
ran out of time.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you all for the amazing introductions and the great observation of what you do for us children seeking education. Now, on behalf of the students in Detroit Public Schools, also known as DPS, a survey was created to ask questions for the board members. Each board member will be asked a question and is expected to answer in 1 minute and a half. Thank you. The first question will be going to Boyd White, which is, what is your opinion on propositions?
Thank you for the question, young man, and don't count that against my time. But Proposition S, basically.
Young lady.
Young lady, I'm sorry. You're doing a great job. Proposition S is speaking to the increase in the millage as it relates to the, ultimately, the foundational allotment. And to make this very plain, the state requires one level of taxing in order to qualify to get the $9,000 that each student is required to have. However, for various reasons, we're about 16.7% when the actual number is 18%. So I actually think it's a great idea. The state requires us, in order for us to tax non-homesteads, which means either people who are renting houses in Detroit or they are businesses in Detroit, the state requires us to go back and ask our voters again if we can tax at the level that the state requires us to. So from that standpoint, I think that the proposal is a good idea. Now, as it relates to another thing that Dr. Telford and I talked about with respect to reading, and that's not on the question, but I want to answer this before I leave, specifically related to third grade reading. How do we improve our third grade reading scores? Dr. Telford called me about this, said, Boyd, you got to answer this before you leave. I think the answer comes down to one word, and that is acceleration. Acceleration. The numbers show that Detroit is actually outpacing the state, Helen Moore, in M-STEP testing as it relates to third grade reading. The problem is the gap still is there, and it's not moving fast enough. The reading, I think we're calling it the reading monies that we got from the reading lawsuit, is being used to try to accelerate this by hiring many more reading specialists in the school, or academic interventionists is the name that they're calling them. But the question is, as a board member, what am I supposed to do to make sure, Dr. Telford, that this gap is fixed? We have to hold our superintendent accountable to make sure that he does what he says. My wife's an educator, and I'm not Helen Moore, I'm not my wife. I'm a lawyer, I'm a pastor. I'm looking at her, I know exactly where she is. I'm a lawyer, I'm a pastor, I'm not an educator. I'm seeing through the glass darkly. From the outside looking in, I see there's a lot that has been done, but there's so much more that needs to be done. And the board member's job is to make sure that they do what they say. And with those things, that's what I believe they can do.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. I got to go. I love y'all. Have a great evening.
Thank you so much for coming.
Love y'all. Got to go.
That was an amazing response. And our next question will be the same question, actually, and it will be going to Miss Sharice Butler. What is your opinion on Proposition S?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay? So I would say, as an individual sort of voter here in the city of Detroit, I'm supportive of Proposition S. What it is looking to do is to address the Headley Amendment that is connected to how our schools are funded. I'll tell you just at a high level, the 18 mills, it is assessed on business owners. So if you own a big business or if you have a second property that you rent out, then you are taxed at 18 mills. And so in that regard, I am supportive of that because those funds are how we fund our schools. Our foundation allowance, which is about $9,600, flows through the state of Michigan. And this is one important tax that goes into that coffer. What Proposition S would mean is an additional $6 to about $10 million each fiscal year. I know that we have been working to address equitable funding. The school district's budget is currently about $1.2 billion, but $6 million can go a long way. $6 million can help us provide more literacy programs, more parent education opportunities. So I am definitely supportive of that.
Thank you so much. Our next question is, please describe the role of a local school board member, and I will be asking Ms. Ida Short.
Thank you. Having been a school board member, I'm glad that you asked me this question. The school board's purpose is to come up with a strategic plan. What are the goals and things that we want for the public and our children? And to hire the superintendent and to make sure that the superintendent is actually carrying out our plan. That's what our major role is. We can only hire one employee. That's the superintendent, who then hires the other staff. But we have to hold the superintendent accountable. If we don't, then we're at fault. We have a problem. And so the public here that's here on Friday night, and I'm so glad that you're here on a Friday night, the public here has to hold us accountable too. Because remember, it takes 7 votes to get things done. Not 7 votes. What did I say? 4. I've meant 4. 7 people on the board. 4 to get things done. But you have to hold us accountable.
Thank you. The same question that I just asked, which will be, please describe the role of a local school board member, will now go to Chris Johnson.
Well, I don't have Ms. Short's experience. I've never been on a school board for DPS. I have been on a school board for a charter school. And our role was to ensure that the education that the students were getting was the proper education, make sure they had the proper materials, make sure that the budget was issued out correctly. And being on the board, one of the roles that I had personally was the books that we were supposed to receive. The students were taught a certain part of that medical, and because I had the medical background, my role was to make sure that they had the proper materials that they needed to actually do the studies that they need to get the skills that they need. So the role of a board member is to make sure that the education that they get is correct, make sure that the materials that they get is the proper materials, and make sure that the funding is divvied out correctly. You know, I don't believe that one school should get something that another school should get. So I think the role of the school board would be make sure that it's equitable all across the board.
What an amazing response, don't you think? My next question would be for Ken Snap. What traits would you look for in a superintendent? My apologies.
The question was, what traits would I look for in the superintendent, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, leadership is essential, and also being of the community. When we elect officials or we put people in positions of power, often we empower them to care for the lives of thousands of people. There's over 50,000 students in the district currently. That person is literally responsible for the education and the progression of each child. You have to understand someone's background first. You cannot pull in people from wherever they come from. I believe VD came from Florida. I believe is it Florida or not? We have to look at that. What did you do in Florida? How were you impactful to those children in the communities? I think that we have to also look at developing a curriculum that is teacher-led and community-led to further help our students. Because if we teach to the test, we're going to fail our kids continuously. Understanding that the illiteracy rate and that issue is only because kids are not afforded the opportunity to early childhood education. Now, what that means is, speaking to the piece I talked about earlier, is getting that curriculum revamped and teacher and community-led, not giving the money to corporations and all these contractors that request $400, $300 million for a curriculum that we're going to throw away in 3 to 4 years. Understanding that the management of money continuously is just abysmal. You have to understand when a contractor comes into the district, they're looking for 30 seconds. They're looking for to continue that contract because they're making millions and millions of dollars. Let's empower our teachers and get them at the forefront, and then they're actually on the ground every day with our students. They know what they need. So curriculum has to be at the forefront. Illiteracy can be met. The fight with illiteracy can be met with developing that curriculum and giving it to early childhood initiatives.
Thank you. Aaliyah Moore, do you have anything to add on to that? What traits would you look for in a superintendent?
Well, I feel like a superintendent has to be a people person. To be that high in authority, you are basically running a district that is affecting children. So being a people person is extremely important. Being as honest and transparent as you possibly can. Because when you're honest and transparent about finances, about district issues, you lessen the conspiracy theories and the just separation between the community and the district. And so our current superintendent, I do feel he has done some things correct, but as far as the financial transparency, the respect for the teachers, the respect for the students, and just being a superintendent that is willing to take accountability, apologize for things, and not just try to constantly, pacify or just make things up. Being accountable is very important. So I do think, like I said, a lot of things are good, but a lot of things could be a lot better. So moving forward, if I am on the board, I will try my best to work on the communication between the community and the district as far as transparency, but respect is the main thing across the board.
Can't wait till you get up there on the board, because I would love to see you there. Richard Clint, what traits would you look for in a superintendent?
What trait would I look for in a superintendent? Well, one of them would be commitment to the community. I mean, they would have to have the best interests of the employees, the teachers, and the students at heart. They have to be an advocate for the school district. And when we're talking about emergency managers and things like that, we have to get together as a board and start lobbying Lansing for some new legislation to undo the damage of what they've done with the school district as far as financing. And especially this crap about every charter school is their own school district. I mean, that's like accounting fraud, okay? Because if you're on a fixed income and you're paying for class space, right? And the thing with the schools, you always talked about a neighborhood, a school builds a neighborhood. You talk about walkable schools and everything. So what we've done the school of choice, and all it ends up being is that, hey, if you could play basketball, sports, or you just one of us to get you out there, we'll get you out there in the suburbs. We'll get you out there in our school, get the money. And if you especially African American, you put them in special ed so you can get an additional $2,000 from the state. And then after count day, you send them back to Detroit. And all this malarkey as far as policy. We got to undo that. And I would look for an activist type of board member or school board superintendent. To embrace the history of our school too, because the emergency manager tried to rewrite or wipe out our history, okay? And the same thing when they say slavery was a jobs program. That's along the same lines of renaming schools after jokers and clowns and things like that. So I would look for an activist type of superintendent that would have grounded roots in the people, some local or somebody that have a vested interest. I mean, not to say that Dr. Beatty don't have a vested interest, but I thought he was emergency
Time's
manager.
up. My apologies. Our next question will be for Tabron Joe and Sharice Butler. What questions would you ask a candidate for the superintendent? Oh. Wait, my apologies.
What are your plans to fix third grade reading?
Tabron Joe.
Okay, so we have third grade reading. We have to put more teachers, more paraprofessionals at the grades K through 3. We have to put those support staffs that teachers need to help pull those students out, individual learning. That's what we need in those schools to fix the reading achievement of third graders. And number 2, we have to get rid of eating, because the only way we can move forward The only way we can move forward is to get the community back on the school board. That's all we have to do. We have to have right now the board is following VD's policies and they're failing. They've been failing before he got here and they're failing now. So we need new leadership so the students can achieve and actually learn how to read.
Thank you. Next question is for Ms. Faustine.
What are your plans to fix third grade reading?
Thank you. All right, so when I look at the reading situation that we have in the schools, we have to look at it from two directions. One, sometimes the parents are illiterate, so they're not able to teach their children literacy. And then the other thing is just maybe the lack of just wanting to be in school. So with the third grades, what I would say is that we need to make sure that the parent, and the reason I'm saying this is because I've seen it firsthand. I had a family staying with me, and the mother was not literate, so her children were not literate. So we have to make sure that the parents have the right support and resources in terms of being literate, and also providing more support after school programs, reading programs, the Read a Book initiative, where you have the kids read a book so much during the day, during the week, things of that matter. Really promote reading. And so that's some of the programs that I would put in place for the kids to learn how to read.
Thank you so much. Quick commercial break. I want to say thank you to Ms. Brown, AKA Motor City, and what's happening in urban education.
Commercial.
Thank you.
Commercial.
Thank you, Greenfield Market and Imperial Market.
The next question. What questions would you ask a candidate for the superintendent? Tabor and Joe. Oh, wait.
I think he already answered.
Victor Gibson. My apologies. How would you support the district's teacher?
The district's
Teachers.
Teachers. Oh, well, that's easy. First of all, make sure that right to work is out the way, so they can have a union and not teachers. But secondly, I would, since I was a first grade teacher, I know how to get students to read. It's easy. It's no big secret. Give them a book and make it part of the curriculum to study the book, and then test them at the end of the week. Give them to them Monday, have them practice it, come back Friday, test to see how much comprehension they know. It's no big secret. All my babies were reading in first grade. So anyway, how would I get teachers? I think the biggest support we can do is make sure that in the schools, the teachers have a collective, well-rounded, wraparound environment that speaks to their stress levels. I think we get administrators who are not managers, who help support the teachers in every way possible. I think the curriculum needs to be adjusted so that each curriculum on each level, first, second, third, go all the way from K to 12, addresses that particular level of child's expertise and ability. You said something about parents reading. Invite the parent in. We had collaboration. So you get the parent and the teachers to collaborate in the classroom, you're going to have a stronger classroom. I mean, when children see parents doing well, trying to do the same thing, then they're like, oh, I want to do it too. You give them the ability that they can. I had parents who used to tell me, I can't do math, I can't read.
30 seconds.
So you come into my classroom, you can sit here. Invite the parent in. A lot of times we don't even let the parents sit in the classroom. What, are we scared? So I hear you. But these are the things we need to do. It's not a big rocket science question. Invite the community in, let them know you're transparent in what you're teaching, teach them to teach their children, and you got it made.
Thank you so much. Same question will go to Jeremiah Steen. How would you support the district's teachers?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I would want to focus on is ensuring that we're retaining our talent. So that's ensuring that our teachers are being well paid. We need our teachers to stay with us, and that's one of the biggest issues that I've been noticing. Secondly, we need to provide more opportunities for teachers to actually work with other teachers and start to brainstorm. So investing in organizations like People in Education, which provides a community for teachers to actually get a chance to work together, collaborate, and really start to break some of these silos, because we keep trying to reinvent the wheel on some of these issues instead of working together to really solve some of these issues that we have. And then secondly, third is then how can we also go about strengthening the relationships between our teachers and our parents. I had a phenomenal conversation. I had a conversation with two PTA parents who feel as if their voices are not being heard because they're constantly advocating to be organized and to receive supports, but they're getting pushback from their principals, they're getting pushback from the teachers and from the district. So how can we start to really leverage our parent, it's the POC, the Parent Outreach Coordinator, to start playing a more active role in ensuring that everyone is starting to work together around working, because our end user is our students. So we all need to be coming together to ensure our students achieve their aspirations.
Thank you. We have one more question. What do you think are 3 top issues in our district? Tosin White.
Tucson night.
Tucson, I'm sorry.
That's good. You said what? Could you repeat the question?
What do you think are 3 issues? What do you think the 3 top issues in our district?
Okay, thank you.
And how would you fix them?
Awesome. Thank you for that question. So what I would say is that one of the first things being inside of a school is that you realize that young people do not come to school, unfortunately. So that's one of the biggest issues I think is facing our district, because if you start talking about all the other questions that you asked about literacy and things like that, 3rd grade reading level, is that if young people are not coming to school, then of course we're not going to be able to teach them, no matter what we put in place, no matter how great we pay teachers. So one of the things I would say that as a school board member, I would push for is that first we figure out what's the issue, what are the barriers that are keeping young people out of school. I could tell you a few of them is transportation. Some of it is parent responsibility. A lot of parents, feel like, they don't have to really send their kid to school. So I think we need to address that as relates to, before there used to be a attendance agent that go out and knock on doors, but also if you didn't show up, then that was a court appearance. So, sometimes I feel like you have to go back to certain issues to ensure that parents' responsibility is being taken into place. And then what I would say overall, I'm just gonna really want to talk about like things that I would do or want to do as a school board member, is that you want to focus on
30
community.
seconds.
A lot of the different schools, they're not community centered because we don't have a lot of community that's invested in the schools. So I think we should go out and meet with the businesses and meet with the community groups and bring them inside the school so they know this is your school. You should support it. You should bring out people to come out and support the students here and the teachers. So that's what I would do, or push as a school board member to do. So I think I'm gonna run out of time. So
Yes, you were. Thank you. Same question will go to Ms. Nicole Conway. What do you think are the 3 top issues in our district, and how would you fix them?
I think our biggest issue is a lack of leadership. The first thing I would do as a superintendent is, or as a school board member, is remove this current superintendent and hire a new one through a democratic process with open interviews and participation by parents and students and teachers. I think we need we need new leadership on the board and the superintendent to be a champion for the students and the people of Detroit, and not be an emergency manager by another name and continue the oppressive and regressive policies of emergency managers, and to continue to carry out the attacks to try to shut down and privatize our schools. We need someone who is going to, instead of make excuses of why we don't have enough money, why children from Bangletown and Hamtramck cannot get a bus to Cass Tech, which happened 2 weeks ago at the school board meeting. Students, several parents who have been working for years for this, Dr. Vitti flat out told them, no, you cannot have a bus to go to Cass Tech. because then everybody would want a bus, basically. Well, get everybody a bus. We should have a bus from every neighborhood to all the magnet schools and from the suburbs into our schools. We have buses coming in from River Rouge into our neighborhood to take children out. We should be reaching out and coming together with the suburban districts who are struggling too, because we have this system set up of having us all compete against each other for finite resources, and we have to stop that.
30
We have to come together, and we need a leader on the board and as the superintendent who will mobilize the community to Lansing and stop taking these attacks and stop being the overseer on the city of Detroit.
Thank you. Next will be Aaliyah Moore. What do you think are the top 3 issues in our district, and how can you fix them?
Well, I would safely say, like Nicole Conway said, transportation is a big thing for our students. 50% of our students don't go to their neighborhood high schools or schools, period. And the district is aware of that. So just setting up a mutual ground type of system would work. And even it could be a pilot system. We're not talking about all schools at once, but just to see, hear the cries of the community, make that mutual ground, and see if it works for a trial basis with increase in revenue for the district. We also need transparency with the finances. I know Sherry Gay Danyogo is running again, but she did advocate for a dashboard to be placed on the website to kind of keep the community abreast of the contracts and the spending. But I do think, and I don't even visit the website, I'm gonna tell y'all that right now. But I encourage you all to look and kind of just follow the money, like another candidate said. But transportation, financial transparency, and just again, respect. Respect is a model that the district created, but it doesn't flow in central office because it has to flow in central office in order to trickle down to the classes.
The Great Debate would like to thank all of the candidates who participated in this historic event that was hosted and moderated by Detroit children. We also like to thank all of our sponsors. A special thanks goes out to our premier sponsor, Attorney Michael Fortner of Spectrum Legal Services. We also like to thank What's Happening in Urban Education, the Telford Telescope, Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, the Detroit Native Sun, who has been enlightening the community with helpful news and information that's not readily found in mainstream media for nearly 20 years. Motor City Apparel, a registered trademark. Get your Motor City sportswear. Greenfield Market, everyone's neighborhood supermarket. And Imperial Market with 5 locations to serve you. We also like to thank all of the children that participated. Amari, age 15. Sincere, age 9. Marquise, age 11. And Jaleel, age 11. Thank you, children, for doing such a great job in putting on a historic event.
Thank you. Ken Snap, do you have anything to add on to that?
Well, I think the top 3 concerns I have they fit into my platform essentially, but it's around giving access to social justice and social needs inside of our community and understanding what that really needs. But my campaign focuses on uplifting teachers first. We have to focus on the retention of teachers. If we're going to ever have a district that moves forward in the positive direction, we have to make sure teachers are here for the long haul. And that also looks like not diminishing a teacher's integrity at a school board meeting. When teachers are coming to you with issues, we have to listen to teachers first. We have to understand their plight. Then we must revise the student code of conduct to reinvest into the teachers and restructure the student code of conduct so the teachers feel supported first. We also must focus on parent engagement. Parent engagement looks like that community piece that I talked about earlier. If we're opening the schools on the weekends, I've talked about this preview to this. Opening the schools on the weekends also invites the community to come in and network and find individuals who want to get involved with teaching on the weekends. I know that some of our staff are just so much. They're so tired. So understanding that getting teachers on the weekend is a really hard aspect, okay? We have to find people who are knowledgeable and are actually accredited to teach on the weekends, and then getting those students to come in from the early childhood piece that I talked about earlier, understanding that you have to have kids from 2, 3, and 4 so that they don't come in at first grade and second grade and third grade and they don't know how to read and they don't know how to write and they don't know arithmetic. You have to start early. You said 30? I can keep going? Okay. Also, understanding that building safety is a priority. Why are we going to schools that are dilapidated? Why don't the schools not have air? Why don't the schools have security systems that are actually working? We continue to spend money on contracts that have no one checking into them to see if we're actually spending the money right. Also, understand that the procurement process inside the Detroit Public School system is abysmal. There are 50 contractors that have not been paid out of this year. You need to follow the money. You need to understand what's going on.
Apologies. My time is up. Thank you. Miss Ida Shore. Same question goes to you. What do you think are 3 top issues in our district?
There are lots of issues that are connected to one another. They're all tied together. But the number one issue is that we have to love our community. We have to love our parents and love our kids. And when I say that, I'm not talking about it in some existential way. I'm saying we have to love and want the best for our children and help our parents to give them the best. And that means that we're going to have, as a board, that signal. In other words, the climate at DPS has to be one in which we truly, truly believe we are a family. We have to act like a family. We have to treat each other the way we want to be treated. And that sounds very simple, but it's not. Because I've heard this over and over again from my peers here about the lack of respect for one another at the district, and this is appalling. We should be able to have a place where everybody feels welcomed and invited in. If they're not, it trickles down. Kids aren't stupid. They pick up this stuff. They know when you care for them. They know when there's issues within the school building. They understand this. They pick up the vibes. And so we need to have that. In addition to that, that means then you have to invite the parents in as real stakeholders, not to just give them a lunch or a dinner, but to actually make them part of the actual decision-making process. And that includes from hiring the superintendent. If we get a new superintendent, it means hiring that person on down. As it relates to the contracts, you are right. The contracts should be available for everybody to see. They should be online before they vote for them to determine which ones we want. And they should also have parent involvement in deciding which contracts that we want. So anyway, it's just a lot. I think that the main thing is that we have to really put the children and the parents first, our community first.
Time is up. Thank you so much. Next question will be going to Ms. Faustine. How will you assure that our school system meets the unique and diverse needs of all students?
Okay, thank you. First and foremost, I think that it's important that Detroit Public Schools take into account that we have a very diverse student body and that everyone has to be involved in the decision-making at the table. As a school board member, I will ensure that we take into account everyone that is a part of our school system, making sure that those that need foreign language assistance, that we have that, those that need English as a first language, we have that, and also making sure that we understand culture, we understand diversity. It's very, very important. It's not like how it was when I was in school. It was mentioned earlier that one of the major problems is like attendance and things, that major problem, because right now a lot of the schools are not accessible in the neighborhoods. So because a lot of the neighborhood schools had got closed down. So with that, we have to like travel. You have a lot of different cultures being mixed into the communities. Like in my community, we have a lot of Latinos that just moved into our community. We never seen that. And so we have to make sure that the schools in those communities are able to adapt to the ongoing changes that are happening in our communities. And I think with my background being in international business and being able to travel, being able to understand 4 or 5 different languages, I think I'm able to, as a board member, understand diversity and understand culture.
Thank you. Same question will be now going to Mr. Knight. How will you assure that our school system meets unique and diverse needs of all students?
Absolutely, thank you for the question. So I like to always tell people like what I've done. I think that's a big thing about a person that sits up in this space and wants to go into a different space. I worked at Western International High School as a dean of culture, and one of the things I thought was very important is things I've learned. Like there's a lot of English language students in our district, so we need to make sure that they have the resources. I believe something I saw done well at Western was that they brought in advocates for a lot of students. So students who even got suspended, they had an advocate. So I believe that we must do that as well. As school board members, ensuring that our students have people to talk to, people to advocate on behalf of them, and that's what I'll do as a school board member. I think what's also important is the not understanding all diverse needs might not be diversity in culture, but there are diverse needs in each school. If you go over to the east side, there might be some different issues than what they might have at Cass Technical High School. So I believe in meeting the needs of each school as well. So, for example, when I was at East English Village, that school required more resources. It doesn't have as many students as Cass Tech, but it required more resources because of all the incidents that were happening. So I know that the superintendent at the time added 3 additional deans and also another assistant principal to help control the culture there. And so I believe that we must take a look at each and every one of our schools and decide like what is needed there. And I'll do that by visiting each school, talking to the parents and talking to the students. I already do that now. I know a lot about the issues that goes on as well, but I will continue to do that as a school board member.
Thank you. The same question will now be passed to Victor Gibson. How will you assure that our school system meets the unique and diverse needs of all students?
Thank you for that question. I think the biggest thing is that we're going to have to take an assessment of who's out here teaching our children. We have different schools like Flicks Foreign Language Academy. We set that up for different schools. Back in the day, we had Burton International. We even went beyond Spanish. We had Vietnamese refugees coming in, Hmong group. So it's going to depend on finding and developing individual schools and the teachers to go and staff these individual schools to make sure that we're successful as far as the diversity. But it goes beyond that, like someone alluded to earlier. We have the ability now to look at what is happening to our people as a whole. We have people who have affluence, so we know that those children have access to computers, Wi-Fi, so on like that. But then we also have students who come from a very impoverished group. So how do we handle those? How do we maintain something with those? That's going to require a very unique position, and that's going to require 7 people coming together and deciding what's going to be best done. I don't have the answers for all the diversity issues, but I know if 7 people get together, we should be able to come up with something.
30 seconds.
And finally, I would just like to make sure that we understand that the whole movement of children out of the district has left some serious gaps. So how do we develop these schools? How do we get them back and have students being able to get to them and have parents be able to get to them? That's going to be something that's going to take a lot of heads. And I'll close by saying the African proverb, no one head can go into council alone. So we're going to need everybody to bring ideas together, and we're going to come up with something that's going to be creative and functional.
Thank you so very much. Now, we all know that emotional health can play a big part in school. So what policies would you support or oppose to protect students from bullying? Tabor and Joe. What policies will you support or oppose to protect students from bullying?
So bullying, I mean, we gotta create a safe space for children when they're coming into schools in DPS. No student should have to walk through a metal detector as if it's a Wayne County jail. They don't do it in Bloomfield Hills. They don't do it in Grosse Pointe. So why would we do it here? Number two, we gotta find those teachers that are welcoming to students of all backgrounds, especially the LGBT community, LGBT students that are in our district. We have to give them support. We have to I call for a great gay straight alliance in all high school and middle school students, because I was one of those students that was bullied, that was talked about, but I didn't have a place to go. I didn't have a place to where I could feel safe. I found that later outside of school, but it should happen. It should be happening in the school systems. Our teachers have a role to play in building the culture in each school, and and we're gonna uplift the teachers so they can be able to do that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so very much. Next, Richard Clementon. What policies will you support or oppose to protect students from bullying?
Well, bullies are usually weak-minded, and you have to get them by themselves. So one of the policies I would get into is identifying the bully and the bullier, and let them go one-on-one on a football field, you know. And but you know, it's you know, that's one way. But another way, like I said, we had to identify the bulliers and discipline them, okay, and put some corrective action on them, okay. I noticed that when I was teaching, you had a lot of these girls, well, a lot of aggressive, and the boys are aggressive, but the high school football team was 0-8, okay? And so I would give them an ultimatum, either football or 10 days out of school or something like that. Or, you know, give them something to do. But, you know, I used to be bullied, right? I used to be bullied. You'd run to the teacher. Sometimes you got to take a stand your ground, and catch them by themselves and identify them and, you know, correct the bully. You know, you have to deal with them.
Mm-hmm. Very true, very true. Yeah. Now, Ken Snap, this is one of my questions that I wanted to ask personally. Why do schools keep allowing to let teachers and staffs go and then be short of staff to where students are missing school and missing classes because there's too many students to learn in one environment?
Okay, first I would like to ask, has this happened to you in your school?
Yes, it has.
So can you speak about it so I can further understand, like what happened? Was it a teacher, like a homeroom teacher or a core class teacher? What was going on?
They let the main teacher go, and we began to get, you know, teachers who aren't not certified, but they are there to teach us, and they did not know what they were doing, which just caused us to not be learning anything for about 3 months. So what would you do to stop this?
Oh, wow. So this is a very complex question. Being an educator, actually, I was in Ronald Brown Academy, which is right there on Chandler Park. So I started my educational career there, and I was a coach there for 10 years as well. And understanding that teacher shortages are real. I was often the person they would call on when a teacher wasn't showing up or was getting ready to retire, so they took their 110 days in different sporadic ways. So I ended up stepping into the classroom and understanding that the kids really became attached to their core teacher or their homeroom teacher. So you have these relationships that are built, and I think that's something that being on the school board we have to focus on is the relationship building, because oftentimes we have student teachers or we have new teachers who never have been around our kids before, and we go out and we hire them and we don't focus on retention, and they get their certification, they go through a program, and they get their student teaching here in the district, and then they leave. So we have to focus on that. That's just like, with Detroit Police. We send them to the police academy, right? And we don't have any resolution in place that requires them to stay inside the city. So we have to look at policy. Okay, we have to look at policy, and we have to hold these teachers accountable that are coming in. Also, we have to change the environment inside of our schools. I think that we have too many cohorts when it comes to DPS-CD, where we have people that come in and we have too many chiefs and not enough. Too many chiefs, and I think that the ego has taken over our educational system. Understanding that we are dealing with people. My mother was a teacher.
My apologies. Time.
20 seconds. Oh, you.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
just what they said. I just have to follow.
It's
rules.
fine, but thank you for the question.
Thank you for answering the question. I will be handing over this same question to Sharice Butler.
So you said, how do we address letting teachers go?
Yes, letting teachers go and staff go, which is allowing students to lose education and limit them to what they need to learn because these teachers are not certified to do this job.
Excellent. Okay.
As a board member.
Okay, as a board member, I would have to understand the why behind that. What's the reason for the teachers or staff members being let go? Was there a disciplinary issue that took place? And so our number one priority is to make sure that we're keeping students safe. So perhaps the staff member or the educator violated a policy. So I would want to ensure as a board member that the progressive discipline process has been followed and that whoever that staff member has been given due process. Secondly, if it's a funding challenge, we would want to advocate for additional funds. If it's a hard to staff school location, perhaps they transfer to another school. We might think about incentives such as bonus pay for a school where we can't, where it's hard to retain staff. I think the other side of this is thinking about the Grow Your Own programs and the various teacher cadet programs where we're mentoring the next generation of educators. We know that the average age of DFT educators, they're getting really, really close to retirement. And so it is crucial that we begin to mentor the next generation of teachers. Programs like Teach for America, programs like On the Rise Academy, programs even like City Year Detroit. We deploy young people who go on to become teachers in schools. So I think we've got to think of it at the sort of top of the funnel, getting more staff members and school professionals into the school system. And then when we're there, making sure that there's a quality experience, they have the training, and they're not going to be dismissed because they're doing something harmful or not leaving for us. They're not leaving for a suburban district. One challenge that we do have is our funding. Our funding here in Detroit is significantly less than our suburbs, and so unfortunately, districts like Southfield, Bloomfield Hills, sometimes they can recruit our teachers, and they, sometimes will leave in the middle of the school year. So we've got to fight for a weighted funding formula and address that funding gap as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, I would like to take the time to give a thank you to our sponsors. RG Social and Consultant Counseling Services, Spectrum Law Firm, Native Son my apologies, Imperial Market, Motor City Apparel, and Glenfield Market, also Curvy Girl Project. Thank you. And we will now give each board member 2 minutes to answer this question.
Why should my parents vote for you?
We'll start with Ms. Moore.
Yes, Aaliyah Moore. They should vote for me because I'm a parent as well. I've heard that at times people may say a parent is not enough, but I'm an engaged parent. It's two different kind of parents. You have the parents that are, activity-wise engaged in the district, and then you have parents that go beyond. Like I said, I go to 4 meetings a month: the policy, the academic, the financial, and then the regular board meeting. I do talk to teachers. I talk to students. And I also do volunteering for the Let's Read program at the school, waiting for that to start up so I can get to my babies. But I am a parent that, over the years of my advocacy, have been accused of not having the intellect, having staff members put me up to advocating as if I wasn't educated in Detroit Public Schools and have the intelligence to look at contracts, have meaningful conversations with central office. And so even despite being said to have the lack of intellect, I still continue to fight for our kids, and I will do that, win or lose. But all you have to do is look me up. I do have a record of over 10 years of advocacy, not just for my 2, but for the 48,000.
Yeah, I think for me, right, I've been committed to investing in the aspirations of young folks throughout my organization since 2018. And so the biggest thing for me is I would ask parents to actually go home and talk to your children and ask them if their voice should be represented on the school board, and if they should have a representative that serves on the school board. Because currently they do not. Their voice is not being heard. There is no one who is representing their interests who is Gen Z, who are between the ages of 12 and 27. So go home, ask your children, and then actually ask them to go to my on my website, Jeremiah Steen for DPS City School Board, and then I think that would be the best course of action. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question. Your parents should vote for me because I know that the schools will get better with Butler. I'm going to tell you why. I'm a proven leader with multiple years of experience, and I want to hone in on my experience working most recently at City Year. Since I've been there, our outcomes have improved tremendously. The young people that we work with, I'm going to tell you some numbers. 80% of the young people that we've worked with in the schools in grades 3 through 9 have improved in their math. 82% have also improved in their reading. And one of the reasons why that has happened is because we use the data to really change up how we're training the young people who work with them. These are young people who just graduated high school, and we provide them with 300 hours of professional development. And then they go in, they tutor, they mentor, and they coach young people just like you. One of the things that I also was very aware of was that we needed to have more corps members that could do that. I went to Lansing, and over the last 2 years, we've gotten $3 million, 2 consecutive years. So that's $6 million to expand programming here in the city of Detroit for our young people. So I have experience, I'm dedicated, and I know how to bridge both community as well as policymakers. The other piece of this is the reverend side. I've been a youth pastor since I was 21 years old. We need a healer on a board. We need someone that can bridge the gap between the community and the school district. I've got a ton of notes here, and what I hear is a lot of mistrust. There's also some misinformation, but the misinformation is connected to the historical baggage of emergency management. We have to heal the divide here in Detroit in order for our young people to thrive. And I'm calling on all of you to figure out how we work together for our children.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Richard Clement, and your question is why should your parents vote for me? Why? Because once I was you. I was your size. I was your kids. I spent a lot of time in the office, okay? And one of my things that you don't give up on kids. You don't give up on them, okay? They might be a bunch of knuckleheads, but you don't give up. And one of my goals is to inspire them to stay in school, because I know that a lot of y'all having problem reading right now, but you could use a cell phone, right? You could recite rap lyrics to the letter, right? So you reading something, okay? And when you're acting up in class, hey, you're trying to put the teacher on blast, but as soon as the teacher puts you on blast with the cell phone, you start to lawyer up. You can't take my picture, yeah? Okay. But why they should hire me? Because, you guys need some activity, like chess, swimming, music, and all of that, something to stimulate your brain, get you inspired. Because through a lot of those careers in the shop programs, you end up going into some careers. Like I said, my older brother was a swimmer, got 30 years in the Detroit Police Department as a scuba diver because of the swimming programs in the school. Some of the famous musicians like T. Money Green, and I know you all heard of Snoop Dogg, right? My classmate, Tony Green, came out of Detroit Public School and wrote the bass line for Gin and Juice. Snoop wouldn't be a dog without him. And he learned how to play in DPS. Okay? I'd also advocate for tax breaks for teachers. Oh, stop. Oh, you didn't give me a time, man. Okay, that's. I'm an activist.
I'm good to go. Have mercy. All right. Thank you, Tucson Night again. One of the things that I would say is so much on my mind to think about, but if you want to have somebody that has experience in working with young people, if you ask anybody on the east side of Detroit of a person that can work with young people, it's me. I've worked in almost every school over here. I've done work with my mentoring program. When parents call me in the middle of the night as it relates to their children, I show up. I've been to crime scenes with Ceasefire, and I've been able to comfort families and things like that when they go through their darkest moments. So if anybody understand what young people go through, and I wasn't gonna share this, but I'm gonna share a story, a quick story. You know, I went to a scene when I was working with Ceasefire as a volunteer, and we got to the scene, and I saw some younger kids that were sitting there, and their clothes were blood splattered. They were holding each other and crying. I'll never forget it. Showed up, and I remember hearing the story that someone in the back of their home shot into their home, and their cousin, they were all over their grandmother's house, their cousin that was with them was shot and killed. And they were sitting right next to her playing a game, and all of them had blood all over their clothes. I'll never forget that scene when I walked up to them, and I thought to myself, that is the kid that does not want to show up for school. That's the kid that they don't get the right support and the right therapy. That's going to be the kid that nobody's going to be able to reach. And I tell you that I've been on these streets on a daily basis trying to figure out how to change and help those type of kids. And that's what our kids need. Thank you.
Tabor and Joe here. Okay, so why should your mom or parent vote for me? Young man, I will put your education first. That will be my priority. I want to advocate for students like you. I believe you will be and can be anything you want to be. I will advocate for the best education that you deserve and need to be successful in this society. I will listen to you, the student, and give the voiceless a voice on the school board. And I will advocate and help your parent navigate the system that is not navigatable by parents today. They can hold me accountable. Right now, I want to hear from your parent. I want to hear from you about what school you go to, what education, what things can we do at the district level to put your needs first and your classmates' needs first. That's why you and your mom and your classmates' parents should vote for me. Tabor and Joe, November 5th.
So your parents and everybody here should vote for me, Nicole Conaway, for the school board because I am the champion of the young people of Detroit and all Detroiters that we need to represent our power on the school board. I've been an activist and a leader and fighter in the movement to defend our schools for nearly 20 years by organizing direct mass action, marching in the streets with students, sitting in with my students to keep our schools open. And I will continue to bring that power to the board. I will not be a rubber stamp. I will bring our power to the board and remind everybody that the superintendent works for the school board, not the other way around. And so I will lead the charge to hire a new superintendent who respects and loves the young people of Detroit. I really agree with what Ida said, and I don't mean that in some warm, fuzzy way. You have to love our kids. And the person right now who despises our students and all of Detroiters needs to go. And we all know that that's the truth. And I'm not here to sugarcoat it, because I don't believe Detroiters are divided. The vast majority of us are on the same side, but the current leadership of this district is not on our side. So I am prepared go on that board and tell the truth. I'm not reaching a hand across and bridging with people who want to destroy our district. I'm here to bring our power to the board to make sure that our side wins.
Thank you. I am very happy to have everybody who will vote for me. And the reason I think you should vote for me is because, one, I am an educator. I have taught at Detroit Public Schools. I currently teach our students who graduated from Detroit Public Schools and those who are dual enrolled at Wayne County Community College. They're enrolled right now in my English classes. I have had board training, so I can jump in right away. I know what to do. I understand what we shouldn't be doing. And as I said earlier, I was the chair of audit, and I can read budgets. I'm a very, very fast reader. So when the emergency manager would send us several things like that thick at 5 o'clock in the evening for us to discuss the next day, I would have had it read by 3 o'clock that morning and find all the discrepancies in what they had. So much so, they took me off of the chair of the academic committee. I was also that. But the board, well, the politics, I won't go through all the details of it, took me off because they weren't doing right and I wasn't letting them get away with it. The other thing is, I'm currently the president of Detroit Public Library. We do a lot of work collaboratively with Detroit Public Schools in terms of programming. And so I would like to see that to be even more expanded. The other reason you should vote for me is because I'm very, very interested in what's happening in Detroit Public Schools. As an educator, it's somewhat frustrating to know that our kids are not able to read like the way they should be able to read and have the critical literacy skills that they have. I'm also concerned about the truancy. These are things I want to work on. But we have to not just work on one thing. Everything is connected. So we have to have some type of wraparound programming for not just the kids, but the family too. You've heard some of the kids' families can't read. That is a problem here. Detroit has a 40% or more illiteracy rate, which means they can't read at the 7th grade level. And I would also like
Time's up.
Thank you.
Why should your parents vote for me? Well, one, I'm committed to improving Detroit Public Schools' educational system for children. I'm focused on creating a safe and inclusive environment for all students. I want to provide support for teachers, staff, to enhance the educational experience. I want to advocate for equity and access to high-quality education for every student. I want to put emphasis on collaborating with parents, teachers, administrators, and community members to address school challenges. I want to advocate for increased funding and resources for innovative programs, technology integration, and professional development for educators. I want to promote diversity and cultural competency in the curriculum. I'm dedicated to ensuring that every student has the opportunity to succeed regardless of their background or circumstances. I want to address issues such as overcrowding classrooms, inadequate resources, and disparities in academic achievement. I'm committed to building a stronger, more equitable educational system for the future. And just on a personal note, me being a preacher, there's one thing that I have to have is integrity and honesty. So saying that, this is why I want your support on November 5th. Vote Christopher B. Johnson. You shouldn't get that. I'm the only Christopher Johnson on the ballot. Right next to where the presidents are. And vote for me.
Asking for people to vote for you is something that I've found to be very hard because it propels your ego to the top. And I think that with me, I'm conflicted when it comes to ego, when it comes to selfishness. And I think that that's what leaders, great leaders have. They are able to drop their ego for the progression of everyone else. And this becomes a conversation about people. And I think that time and time again, from working at Ronald Brown Academy to being a coach for 10 years to being a mentor to just being in the church to being on the East Side to advocating for social justice at the national level, just understanding that people are first. And you have to have someone that's relatable when we elect people to positions, regardless if it's at the top of the ticket to the bottom of the ticket. You have to understand the plight. You have to understand the struggle. You have to have the sense of belonging to the community, to advocate for the community. I don't think that I have the best ideas, but I think that my ideas are on point and they are sustainable. I have provided information. I have provided policy points from the beginning. That's what this is about. It's about people and understanding that people need help in areas where they've been underserved for so many years, and they need people who are selfless. You cannot put your ego above the people. And we continue to look at our elected officials, and they continue to propel themselves into a way where they're not of the people anymore. We elect you. We understand where you're from. I'm from the East Side. My parents were union members. My dad worked for GM for 30 years. My mom worked for Detroit Public Schools for 25 years. I understand what unions do. I understand what the struggle is. And I understand what the progression that we aim to be as people and as humans, and we have to continue that as people. So vote Ken Snap November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you. My name once again is Faustine Amara Oweneme, and I am your candidate for the school board for the city of Detroit. Your parents should vote for me because I understand, and I always promote to children, you can be anything you want to be, anywhere you want to be. And the reason I say that is because my education provided me that the road, the path to travel to 30 different countries, from Europe, from Africa, from Asia. That education that I received was from Detroit Public Schools. I still remember when I arrived in Japan, the first thing I could think of was Miss Haywood from Martin Luther King, my Japanese teacher. She could see me now. The world is global. Our education is global. We have to prepare these kids for the 21st century. They need to know currency. They need to know import, and they need to know export. They need to know countries. They can't keep walking around thinking Africa is a country when it's 54, when it's one continent and 54 different countries. And that child needs to know that they can grow up, they can take their entrepreneur background, they can go to Africa, they can go to South America, they can go to Costa Rica, they can buy land, they can invest, they can build. We have to start thinking in this little box. And we have to start thinking, making our kids know that this world is global, because guess what? The other world, the rest of the world knows that it's global. Those kids in China, they're learning 4 or 5 different languages. Those kids in Africa are learning 4 or 5 different languages. Indians, they're focused on technology. We have to get our kids to that level where they can compete globally. They know that with the internet now, they can get a passport and say, oh, I want to go. So the world is not small anymore, and we have to prepare our children for that world.
Last but not least, right? Yes, why should your parents vote for me? Well, all I can say is this. I'm going to use my title, which I have not done up until this point. If you go and put my name out in the city of Detroit, even across the country, they would ask me, how do you know Baba Gibson? My name is Baba Gibson. Baba means father. I have earned the right to be called your baby's father. And as a result, I protect, like every father, every child in my venue, and not just in my class. At Malcolm X Academy, we were responsible for every child in the building. So the issues that your child is going to face, they become my issue as a parent. Your child is being bullied, that's my issue. Your child is don't feel safe, that's my issue. Your child is not getting the academics that it needs, that's my issue. I've had teachers in my building that did not do my children right, that's my issue. So when it comes to why your parents should vote for me, know that you're going to be safe. We took a group of 7th and 8th graders to Africa. They were safe. If you go out in the neighborhood now and say, Baba Gibson, you will be safe. You can carry my name out to your community. and somebody would pick it up. I have so many students out there, I'm just proud of myself. But lastly, I would like to make this known. What we're facing here is exactly what's facing in 33 other urban cities in this country. Quit thinking what you're seeing here is not being replicated. Charter schools, vouchers, all this stuff is everything. So why your parents vote for me? Because when they're ready to march, like some of these people have said, I'm gonna be there. When it's time to heal, I will be there. I was part of Keep the Vote No Takeover when it first started. I was part of the Dexter Amherst Center before we gave it back to the city. I am not just a leader, I am a soldier. And I will fight.
The Great Debate would like to thank all of the candidates who participated in this historic event that was hosted and moderated by Detroit children. We also like to thank all of our sponsors. A special thanks goes out to our premier sponsor, Attorney Michael Fortner of Spectrum Legal Services. We also like to thank What's Happening in Urban Education, the Telford Telescope, Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, the Detroit Native Sun, who has been enlightening the community with helpful news and information that's not readily found in mainstream media for nearly 20 years. Motor City Apparel, a registered trademark. Get your Motor City sportswear. Greenfield Market, everyone's neighborhood supermarket. And Imperial Market with 5 locations to serve you. We also like to thank all of the children that participated. Amari, age 15. Sincere, age 9. Marquise, age 11. And Jaleel, age 11. Thank you, children, for doing such a great job in putting on a historic event.
I have a question, and it is, can we count on you to stand up to Dr. Vitti? And we're going to start from Mr. Gibson and work our way back down. You have one, and why? And you have exactly 1 minute.
Say the question one time. Say again.
Can we count on you, all of you guys, to stand up to Dr. Vitti, and why?
Oh, I'm going to stand up right now. See, what you don't know is that when during the hiring process, I was on that team to hire the superintendent. We had folks in that room talking about how great superintendent he was going to be. Even though my friends told me in Jacksonville, Florida, how much he was damaging our children. We had better candidates for superintendent, but somehow or another, the powers that be, and you all got to know there are some powers handling behind the screens who they wanted up here. Because remember, Vitti, when we hired him, when he was hired, he left Florida, he went over Detroit, went all the way up to Mackinac, and sat with the Mackinacans, and then he stopped on his way back to Detroit. Now, we hired him. Then he stopped at Lansing, got his operation orders. By the time he got to Detroit, it was a wrap what his mission was. There are people paying these folk to do what they do to us. Critical race theory and what they're doing is in play, people. And you won't hear that on TV 2. You won't hear it on 7. You won't even get it from UIN. Oh, maybe you might get it on UIN. Keep it to the culture. But standing up to Vitti right now, we can do it. But while we're doing that, we still got to correct the damage of our children. Okay? And the last, I will leave you all with this. That $94 million, why did they give it to the same people that caused this problem in the first place? Why is the state of Michigan handling the $94 million when they caused the problem in the first place? But I'll let you all figure that out.
Next person, thank you so much.
I think this is why it's important to have people that's from Detroit to represent Detroit. We have to stop hiring or quote unquote electing or hiring outsiders to come in to do the work that we need to be doing ourselves. We need people that's from the city, that understand the city, that knows the culture, that appreciate the neighborhood. I remember when I was in school, your school was your neighborhood. If you say you was from Henry Ford, I knew exactly what hood you came from. No, I don't know where no hood none of these kids are from, because I don't know where none of these schools are at. Because they have chopped up our system so bad, and they chopped up our identity as Detroiters. So we have to really come together, make sure that we stand for what is right. We march for what is right. We're transparent. We work on behalf of the children. We work on behalf of the future. Because everything that we're doing now, 10, 20 years from now, that's when it's going to have its impact. Not tomorrow, but our future. So we really have to, this next school years and school years to come, we have to put our foots down and stand for what is in the best interest of Detroiters, those that are raised here, born here, spend their money here, do their business here, raise their children here. And we got to stop bringing outsiders into the city of Detroit.
Well, the first thing I would say, standing up to VD, is by policy. I mean, it's by implementing policy that actually matters, and then being a champion of that policy. Yes, you are one vote, but I believe that if you're advocating for something and you're at the forefront of those issues, people will see the truth, and that people will be we will be transparent, and people will see the truth. Understanding that policy is the key as a board member. What are you doing as a board member to ensure the safety of the children, of the staff, of the families? What are you doing to ensure the progression of the community, of the students, and of the staff? Standing up to VD is not, that's just the bare minimum. Not being a rubber stamp is the bare minimum. We have to get away from the bare minimum when it comes to Detroiters. We continuously see the bare minimum. We elect people who do the bare minimum.
30 seconds, come on.
I think we feel where I'm going here. The bare minimum is no longer acceptable in the city of Detroit. So, as we go forth from this election, yes, we have the presidential election, but understanding that next year we have the municipal election, and that is where you are responsible as citizens to stop accepting the bare minimum for yourselves.
Next.
Will I stand up? The answer is yes. There are some people in this room.
Get a little bit closer, please.
There are some people in this room that know that I have stood up in the past. If you're right, then I agree with you. If you're wrong, I'm not ashamed to tell you wrong. And that's the problem that a lot of us have today. We have to stand up for what's right. We don't have to go along with others just because the rest say, okay, we don't want to feel out of place. I grew up feeling out of place, so it's nothing new to me. If you're wrong, I'm going to tell you you're wrong. I'm going to find a solution, and I'm going to tell you what I think should be done. And that's what we need to do. So I don't think that there's a one-stage solution to this. Unfortunately, we have to work with him because he got a contract to 2028. So in the meantime, we got to figure out what we can do to wrangle him in to make sure he does right for our children. And then when the time comes, if there's a need, then I say people can say what to do, whether to let him go or not. But right now, we just have to find a solution and stand up.
Thank you. Next.
That's right. Thank you. I think it's important to stand up to the superintendent, because if we're not meeting our goals and objectives, which should be in that strategic plan, what it is we want our kids to have and how much of it we want them to have, if he's not meeting those, we have a right to go to him and talk to him and explain to him what we want, because we are the person who hired the superintendent. You are the person who hired us when you vote for us. So everything has to be aligned. If it's not aligned, then there's a problem. If we're one vote and the rest of the folks want to go with the superintendent who's not doing the right thing, then that's where you come in. I need you. You can't just sit me out there by myself and expect me to do all the fighting. I'm only one person. But the community can come in and raise holy hell. That's your role. And that's what you got to do. You have to stand by us who you elect on that board and get us to do the right thing too, because you can't let us slide and slack either. We have to be there, and we have to do what the parents really want that's on behalf of our children in this community. I am not shy to do that, and I've had situations where, Mrs. Moore will probably tell you, where I couldn't get some things, I went and got the parents. So you're going to have to get the parents to come out and voice their opinion and say what they want, regardless of what form that's going to be, whether it's going to be marches, standing up at the board meetings where parents would line up over and over and over again with these long lines. That's okay. Where parents are coming to talk about the school closings, and I know there are going to be some, that they need to come in and talk about these things and make their voices known. So, as I said before, I've been on the school board. I have my same phone number as I've had since I've been on the school board. I've not changed that phone number. When they went online, this district went online, I had so many parents calling me because the computers they gave the kids weren't working. And there was nobody to help them fix the computers, or they didn't know where to go to fix the computers. So I'm still a public servant, and I have a strong desire to make sure our kids are educated, because I came through the public schools. My husband came through the public schools, and all of our children came through DPS.
Okay,
so I want
sorry,
the best.
Time is up. Next, please.
Nicole Conaway. Of course, I will stand up to Dr. Vitti. I've been doing it since he got here. He was run out of Jacksonville, left, resigned before he got fired. He should have never been hired. I was appalled when it was the first vote of the new school board that we fought to get elected was to vote for the Eli Broad-backed search committee to hire Dr. Vitti. That should have never happened. So, yes, and I think this is a good question, but the right way to stand up to him is to remove him. It's not working with him, it is to remove him. He has been protected by the current board, who extended his contract before the election because they know how unpopular he is. So I am not enough to do it, which is why I'm running on a slate along with Tabrian and Benjamin Royal, because that's 3 of us, and if we can get one more vote, we can get rid of him. Let him take us to court and sue us over that contract. I've beat him in court twice. I'm not afraid of that. I want to do what's right for our kids.
Thank you so much.
I concur with Nicole. I will stand up to Dr. Vitti. I have in multiple different times since he's been here. But I will stand up to him with the city of Detroit behind me and supporting me and supporting real education for the city of Detroit and our students. Now it's time, not for the bare minimum, like Snap said. We're not looking for the bare minimum. We're looking for the exceptional. We're looking for the excellence.
That's right.
We're looking for people that care about students and know where we're going and know how to get there. When elected, I want to challenge. Well, my challenge to myself is, when elected after November 6th, what are we going to do? We have everybody in this room and every forum before and after this. These are the people the board needs to hear from. We need to hear from the community. We need to come up with a plan together to advocate for our students. And we have to, and that if that's including getting rid of Vitti, that's what we have to fight for. But board members, one of us can't do it alone. We have to have 4 members to change things on the board. And right now, you have 7 that's rubber stamping Dr. Vitti's policies and procedures. 6. My apologies. 6, but I need your support. I need you behind me at every school board meeting, at every parent
30
meeting.
seconds.
At every parent meeting. I need you to walk into schools and tell me what's going on. If you can't get into a school, I will walk with you into a school, because that's what's important. We have to be on the ground, boots on the ground, fighting for our kids in Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Absolutely, I'll stand up. And when I think about standing up, I think about just holding people accountable to what you put forth. But I just want to be also clear I mean, a lot of times people, if you were to sit here and listen to some of the things that were said up here, you would think our schools were trash. Yeah. Our schools are not trash. Let me just stay there. And there has been some progression, whether you want to believe it or not, there has been progression under Dr. Vitti. So if you can sit here and say that hasn't.
Progression and closing.
May I finish? Thank you. So, like I said, there's been progression under Dr. Vitti. I won't sit here and make it seem like, oh, he's the worst person that ever came into the district. I think that's kind of a ridiculous notion. I think a lot of parents still support his leadership. If you look at what has happened under COVID, if you look at how much that a lot of schools right now are laying people off. And I think the problem with Detroit is that, problem with some people is that we like to tear people down, and what ends up happening
30 seconds.
is that we can never build up a great city or a great school district because there's too many people that no matter who's in power, no matter who's in leadership, they're going to tear them down every chance they get. I won't be that person. I'll be a person that builds collaborations. I'll be a person that work with people to make sure that our kids get the best education. It does not benefit from having a superintendent from year after year. Every time somebody has an upset with them, they want to move them out. I won't be that guy. I'll never be that guy. I'll let you stand. I'll stand on that.
Rubber stamp. Ask why he left Florida.
You want me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay, because let me get in character. How can we count on you to stand up to Dr. Vitti, and why? Because I need to know.
Why? That's a great question because I already had experience standing up to him already. For instance, we were restoring the name of Dr. Ethelyn Crockett's name back to the high school there. And between me, Rep. Johnson, Rep. A. Ash, and a couple of the neighborhood people, we raised holy hell, and Beatty was half-stepping. And then we finally broke him down, and we got that name changed. We was working on getting Finney restored because, he was a good white man, okay? Finney was an abolitionist that hates slavery. That's right. And East English Village don't mean a doggone thing. That's right. Okay? Davis Aerospace, we stirred that up, Matter of fact, we still working on him because after we get through, we're going to have the fire department with bigger equipment. They could have better airplanes flying in, and we could pay back our retirees with the revenue from the airport and train pilots at the same time like they did at Tuskegee. You're going to pimp the Tuskegee airmen, you're going to have them working on some crap. I mean, don't pimp our name and our fame to play a game, okay? As far as reading, it's not hard to stand up to Dr. Vitti, and we can do it once, we can do it again until I get tired.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
So I know this is called a debate. So let me debate a little bit. So Beverly Kendall Walker and Colonel Milton have been working with the legislature to bring Davis Aerospace back to DPSCD, and it's already in progress. The funding is on the way. Let's start there. 2, when we talk about fighting holy hell, is it hell or following policy? There is board policy that specifically says if you want to change the name of a school, you have to have community input. And y'all did that, and it was effective. Mm-hmm. I just need to say that because there's a lot of misinformation in the room. The board table is not supposed to be chaos. If you are looking to go backwards and get back into the place where people are arguing and causing chaos in schools, then shame on you, Detroit. My very first week at working at DPSCD, and I'm saying it like that, it was a board meeting. It was damn near chaotic. I said, is this what I'm here to do? Under no circumstances. We do not need chaos. Imagine the task of a leader post-emergency management. You have the state of Michigan, the Financial Review Commission that literally has to approve every single thing. And so Detroit, we've had so much scrutiny. We've had so much systemic dismantling of our education system. It is going to require someone who has values. And the value that I will stand up to you and Vitti and everybody else is students first, collaboration always. We must Heal the hurt from emergency management. Enough of this misinformation. We would not be sitting here as candidates for school board if we were still under emergency management and state takeover. I was campaigning in the King Homes today, and then guess what? I was over in Grosse Pointe, and I might be in Lansing next week or in Mackinac another week. We gotta work together. Stop this divide.
Thank you so much. Next, please.
It's hard to follow behind, but I guess I'll answer the question backwards. So my experience, I was a product of Kellogg's $22 million investment in youth advisory boards. So serving on boards has been my entire experience going into high school. And then I became the youngest trustee at the Skillman Foundation, and also the youngest board member at the Michigan Nonprofit Association. So my entire career has been advocating not only for nonprofits, but advocating for children, and standing up to folks who feel as if they're so powerful, they have more and more money, so that they have control over folks who don't. So that's been my entire career. So I will absolutely I will absolutely work with Dr. Vitti, create a standard. If he does not meet that standard, I'm going to have to obviously go against him. But go back to Tucson's point. It's easier to cut down a tree than identify the issues that's wrong with it and help it grow. And so how can we start to work together to actively ensure that we're creating a product, a great product, which is our education, to ensure our students all succeed here and beyond Detroit and Michigan.
Thank you so much. Let's hear from Aaliyah Moore.
Yes, thank you, Aaliyah Moore. I have been standing up to Dr. Nikolai Vitti since his arrival, in 2016. I have been standing up so much so that I have been accused of having a personal attack against this man when I know him personally at all. And that's the thing with Detroit. At times, I have not lived anywhere else. I can only speak on my home. But we have a tendency when people continuously to hold people accountable, we get labeled as being, it's personal, and you just have to have something to say all the time. But if I don't say anything, I'm just like everybody else. So it's like, when do you separate yourself and decide you're going to stand and be consistent no matter what? And then on top of that, this is not personal. This is my life. I eat, sleep, breathe DPSCD and the accountability. So at times, even with my emails, my direct conversations with Nikolai Vitti, he has shown me more respect at times than board members. And board members are over Nikolai Vitti, and we are over them both. So if I am elected, I feel like it may be times I have to check my own board. Because if we are not working together, how can we collectively lead a superintendent? And right now, I attend all these meetings. There's a lot of division in the current board right now. Some of those board members are being left in the dark on issues that are supposed to be across the board. So there has to be accountability, but people have to understand it's a difference between a checkable moment as a professional and being personal, which I have never been.
Y'all, it's been a night, hasn't it? It done got serious a long time ago. Can I say? I know I'm not the only person who done seen that, and I can see on y'all faces, y'all are serious about this just as much as they are. So let's hear some questions from y'all. The audience. Do anyone from the audience have any questions? I guess they'll just come over here.
Y'all want to go home?
Before we do get the questions, I just want to thank everybody who's come tonight, and I also want to commend everybody on this panel here, because we have heard some very profound expressions that are really, whoever gets elected, I'm not worried, believe me, because any three of you, I just wish it was four, but any three of you can do the job here, and I'm very encouraged by what I have heard this evening. And I also want to thank the sponsors again. Katrina Brown's been running around here, working her butt off, and the Detroit Native Sun publisher, Valerie Lockhart, has been very, very, very helpful in doing this program. And the kids, have asked some tremendous questions.
Thank you so much. Anyone else? Can we have anyone else come up here who has any questions?
Oh, I'm sorry. This question's for all the members or the proposed members. How do you propose to get the funding needed for Detroit students to get an equal quality education?
She was kind of muffled, so.
I'm sorry, I have a speech thing. How do you propose to get the funding needed for Detroit students to get an equal quality education?
The way to do that, you introduce some bills in Lansing, because the way it all starts with a bill, you know. You start with a bill to introduce in the law and get it enrolled. That's how it all went down. That's the way to do it. And you might want to have a few fundraisers and a couple of grants. Well, that's how you get it done.
Yeah, in the immediate term for me, it's really going to be focusing and working with the DPSCD Foundation, because currently they are not working to their full capacity in supporting students and also making sure that that the resources that they have are being transparently given out or even in that space. Some people don't even know that there is a DPSCD Foundation, one. Teachers, students, and administrators. Two, they haven't even posted in the last 2 years their full a full report on how money is actually being allocated throughout the district. So I work closely with the DPSCD Foundation to help unrestrict the dollars that they do have, and then make it a seamless process for folks to get access to those dollars.
To that end, I would say we need to overhaul Proposition A, remove the hold harmless provision that allows Southfield, Bloomfield Hills, and other suburban districts to receive much more funding than we do. We also need to look at a statewide ballot initiative to increase taxes and charge billionaires, have them pay their fair share of taxes.
Okay, we'll go to the next question from the audience.
Okay, hello. My question is to each of the board members, each of the potential board members. If you can just do a 1-minute response, that would be great. As a school board member, in addition to making sure that students' needs are met, explain how you will also protect staff from being bullied and/or wrongfully terminated by VD and board members that just goes along with unjustified treatment instead of appropriately investigating all situations. Please start, Ms. Aaliyah Moore.
Thank you, ma'am. That's a good question. I have seen teachers beg at the mic for their jobs. I have seen them with confusion and the lack of support. But it does start with the union, especially if they're paying their dues. The union reps need to be in these buildings, and they need to rep these teachers. If I am on the board, I will definitely, if possible, if it's in policy, but I would like to, the schools that I am directly responsible for, I would like to see and make sure that they do have union representation, but also is the representation doing its job. I've been in a building and the union rep did nothing for her peers, so that's my answer.
I just want to say that the union does not have any say when it comes to termination. So we can't utilize the union, unfortunately.
Boo.
So, yes, and it's wrong, but it's not, it's a subject of non-bargaining.
Are we fact-checking candidates?
So we can move on to the next.
Yeah, I was just going to say that we need to strengthen relationships between
It is true.
between the board and the staff. I mean, one time we actually left a debate. I kind of was almost kind of confronted by a teacher who felt the need to address a concern about her school, but was fearful to share what school she came from, who the folks were in the school that were causing the issue, due to the fact that she felt like someone was going to come and attack her later on. So we need to really figure out a way to build trust in the district so that then folks feel comfortable enough to share what concerns they have, what issues are present, and then we can start to go down the pipeline to identify how to go about addressing it. So that would be the steps that I would take.
And get rid of teacher jail.
Amen.
Remember, this is unjustified termination and bullying that we are addressing.
Absolutely. So I would say proactively, We should do some work on healthy relationships and climate and culture reactively when there is a termination for cause. That's typically in a board packet. I would want to make sure that the Office of Employee Relations or whoever is putting that information forward has, sort of sound evidence. One perspective, one option, if in fact it seems as if there's not objectivity, is to think about some third-party entity that does the investigations. This could sit in like the OIG, where you have the Office of the Inspector General that does not report to the superintendent. That person reports into the board. So that's another option if in fact it seems as if there's not, objective investigations.
Okay, time. We will be having another one of the potential board members go, and it will be picked.
I didn't understand what she said.
We'd like to hear from Nicole. I'm sorry, we're just running out of time.
Thank you. So it stops with the board members. You have to ask questions because there's at least 3 of us in this room who have been unjustly terminated, either as whistleblowers or with the ADA, FMLA laws being weaponized against me. And I can tell you, having gone through the process, there was no evidence. The evidence provided against me in the supposed investigatory interview was no investigation at all. Being fired for having a medical issue is not acceptable. When I've tried to work with years for the district to get an accommodation to be able to work. So this is happening, and it may sound like a broken record, but it comes from the top. These are policies that are coming down from VD that are abusive, and it's why you're losing teachers in the classroom. You'd rather fire people who aren't just yes people and go along with everything he says and live in fear of him, and the administrators in the schools that are implementing those policies. So the way to change the climate and culture to stop this from happening is from the top. And it can start first with school board members asking questions when they get these lists of terminations every month.
Okay, thank you. We'll be moving on to the next question. Can you ask a certain person?
Yeah, I'll ask Victor Gibson. Critical race theory, it's not in the news, but it is definitely a factor in the United States. What are you guys, Victor Gibson, what are you planning to do, or the other board possible members doing to correct this history that we really are finding out that we've been lied to about our history for a long time? What are you guys doing to address that?
Well, what you're hinting at, I believe, is what we call. What you're hinting at is something, what we call critical race theory. And that is to go backwards. I mean, this country wants to go backwards in society because when you take away the knowledge, and as the saying goes, people perish for lack of knowledge. The whitewashing, literally whitewashing of history is their main goal. Because if they can uneducate this population, give 20 years, like somebody said earlier, give 20 years from now, without that, our children being able to know what, when, and where, and how, or as we say, having a historical and geographical reference point, then they'll be able to do whatever, however, whenever. And that's one of the goals. We have to kind of make sure that our future is going to be in our children's heads 24/7 forever. In perpetuity, as they say.
Thank you so much. We'll be moving on to the next question from the audience now. My apologies, but we do not have enough time right now, so.
Okay, I want to ask Nicole Conaway and Tabor Joe, how will you address the continued COVID outbreaks in the schools and COVID safety?
Please make it around 30 seconds.
I can do this one very, very quick. Yes. I would reinstitute mandatory testing, vaccinations. COVID should be a required vaccination, just like the other vaccinations kids have to come to school with during a pandemic. It's crazy that we didn't do that immediately when it happened. bring back masks, and expand the virtual program for everybody who needs it and wants it, including teachers. It's outrageous that the students are able to stay home and protected, and the teachers who the virtual school was set up for vulnerable teachers still go into the building and are exposed. That's why I got fired, ultimately. It didn't have to happen. I'm an excellent science teacher. We've got a lot of other excellent teachers who were forced out, forced to retire, forced to resign, haven't been able to come back since COVID, and at least about 2,000 students, which was the number about roughly that was in the virtual school, and is now down to a couple hundred. So we've driven students away. So we can fix that, though.
Expand virtual education, contact tracing in the district, because families, COVID is still alive. People are catching COVID. I work at the post office. People are catching COVID left and right. Making sure people are safe, smaller class sizes. We've been fighting for that. So, we can do it. Expanding the virtual education is one option, and tracing as well, because right now the district don't know who's out sick or not around COVID.
All right.
There's nothing, they don't care about COVID anymore.
Thank you so much. We'll be moving on to the next question from the audience.
Good evening, I'm Jocelyn Harris, and lifelong teacher. It's biblical. Fact is, though, I want to ask this question just in being
very much a grandmama, great-grandma, and all that other stuff, work hard in my community. I'm looking at the body language of all of you on this body, and being that I'm a part of an elected body called the D4 Community Advisory Council, there's 7 of us. It does take 4. That's the majority. My question is, I'm wondering, on this board, who is going to be the person who takes the lead in developing consensus? Because everybody has a right to their opinion. And I'm seeing a lot of body language that makes me think some people are going to be dismissed and others are going to monopolize. Well, that's not going to be to our advantage. So my question is, how are you each as board members going to know when it's time to step up and step back? When it's time to be a chief? When it's time to be an Indian? And how about this fact that I've learned at the age of 74? Nobody knows everything.
Exactly. I think for me, I don't know
if that's a question I asked.
Well,
but
that would depend on the situation at hand.
Well, no, before I was going to say, I think it's okay for us to have internal dissent on the board in this conversation before we present something, and then everyone has some level of dissent. So I don't mind some level of dissent, but also coming from the axiology and the values set around, I don't want to build higher fences but longer tables. So how can we bring as many voices to the table as possible? And with that, it requires some level of dissent because we all have very different axiology, we all have very different value sets, and that's okay. But I think what our issues and concerns are is that some of the things that are being presented are not factual. So now how do we use the space to actually, with the limited time that we have, to present the facts versus the fiction that's being presented in some of the, I think that's what, but definitely identifying ways for us to work together is present, for sure. Yeah.
Well, I am very excited to know that you stepped up, young man, because I have no prior knowledge of you. But it takes that kind of person to bring influence and bring groups together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I want to respond to Ms. Harris, if you're okay. I don't know how they're doing the responses now, but I think first off, I definitely appreciate your leadership, Ms. Harris, and I know from a standpoint of how much you have worked to build coalitions to get back recreation centers in this area. So I know the work that you do, and I'm very proud to even know you. So let me just start there. And second, like you said, I think your point is definitely well taken. Like, in order to be a board member or anybody that's going to be in leadership in the city, you have to be someone that can build coalitions. You can't be always tearing down, while at the same time, like as you all stated, you have to be able to hold people accountable. And what I tell people, what I go by is my goals, what I go by is my values. So if it goes against my values, you will always see me stand up. You will always see me raise flag. But I will not be at a board meeting every single day, fire, 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 because if that's the case, if somebody's under the threat of being fired every single time you come there, then what in the world are we building with our kids? You're telling them you have no future here, you're gonna be gone. So we got some people who have vendettas, they run with it. We can't have that on the board.
That's right. Modeling.
Okay, we have 3 more questions from the audience, and we are going to try to make this quick as possible because we're running out of time.
This question for Tavian Joe and Nicole Conaway. This is going to be my first election, but not because I'm young, because I'm an immigrant. And I want to know because the school, being a leader in Detroit, clearly is not just about the schools. I agree with some of the people, it goes beyond. What is, how do you see yourself as a leader that actually can make national impact as a political leader in this nation? Given the importance of the election of this particular year that we see.
We need the moderator, they're monopolizing the conversation. They're saying, they're basically saying.
I'm a voter!
I know, but you're monopolizing the conversation. Everybody came up and asked for.
You can answer the question, go ahead.
But I'm saying, I think the moderators, there's a lot of people on the end that.
I'm part of a national civil rights organization, and I have been part of national marches in Washington, and I'm glad you asked this question because we have to see the bigger picture. We have been in the fight of our lives to save our district, and depending on the outcome of this election, this fight could get a whole lot bigger. And in fact, we've been under attack by the Democrats in education. So, and if, as boring as it is, if we end up with a Trump presidency, we are literally going to be fighting for our lives. And I think as a member of a civil rights organization for 15 years, I think I am the leader that is prepared to make that bigger fight. And I'm not afraid to do that. Yeah. And particularly with defending our immigrant students and families here as well. Even if Trump isn't elected, he's pulled the Democratic Party so far to the right that the things Harris is saying about immigrants are pretty scary. So I think we have to be prepared to stand up for our immigrant students and families and really make this, the district a safe sanctuary district as it is on paper.
And then really quickly, I would just want to pass off his question to Faustine, who's down at the end, because she actually has experience in this space. I mean, I don't want to pass on you, because I know he asked a question to both of you, but I know Faustine actually has experience in working with immigrants and actually having an understanding around how to make educational movements nationally. So I just wanted to just uplift her in that way, if possible.
Okay, thank you so much. We still have another two audience questions, so we'll need to get to that right now.
Let's do it, baby, let's do it.
Well, my name is James Beasley. I'm a taxpayer in the city of Detroit, and I also work for the Two Sigma Research Group. Researcher, by the way. Yeah. Awesome. Right there. Yeah. Okay. I get it. Yeah, basically, grade 3 reading scores in Detroit have been growing at negative rates since the 2014-2015 school year. With negative growth, this condition eliminates the possibility of recovering from pandemic learning loss. I'd like to know, what is your plan to correct the problem?
Are you asking everybody?
Yeah, well, we're going.
All right, so.
Well, we need to concentrate on the third graders, give them double time in the reading and have a task force as far as more resources as far as teachers, paraprofessionals, and something to change those grades. Like I said, we got these charters and we got the public schools, and the charter things are failed. I mean, you get all these special schools, you got the same scores, so we got to come up with a new game plan.
Okay, I always like to tell my story when it comes to this question. My son, when he was 4 years old in preschool here, they wanted to give him an IEP. They told me that he needed speech therapy and I needed to put him in a program. And I kept thinking to myself, like, he's only 4. So he did preschool here, then we went to Senegal, and he did a year in Senegal, and then I returned him back to the States. My son is operating, he's #1 in his class with math and reading. So the reason I bring that up is because we have to look at how our children are being classified in the first place to even say that they are illiterate. We do know that a lot of our kids at the young age, 3, 4, 5, when they haven't even developed, are being classified as special ed, or they need this, or they need that. And then they follow that along for the rest of their lives. My sister is 26. She was diagnosed with special ed. So when we want to say that our kids are illiterate, the first thing we need to do is look at the system and saying, how are we even classifying them in the first place? Because not all these kids are illiterate. Maybe they learn at different levels and at different rates. So I think that's one of the first things that we really need to pay attention to.
I'd like to speak to that piece that I was talking about earlier about
Wait,
getting.
I'm sorry, but we're running out of time. But we do have a question for Mr. Snap and
Okay.
Mr. Gibson by one of the audience members.
Yes, I'm Matt Martin from Urban Information Network. I was present when at least 13 of you were there at the Shrine of the Black Madonna explaining your platforms, and your perspective, your points of view, and the things that meant something to you. But and I'm looking at all this interest and concern at one panel. Here we have another panel with just as much enthusiasm and emotion, you know, and focus. You know, so my question is, what happens when all this cohesive awareness, you know, is represented here today? What happens to it when 3 people are selected out of 22 to add to 4 sitting on a board? You know, what, does it dissipate? Does it disappear? Do you go back in the background? You miss out on your opportunity to go along, to get along? What is it? You know. So I like to ask those questions to Brother Snap and Brother Gibson.
So, yeah, thanks for the question. I think we spoke about this earlier when we were just networking. Just being up here, understanding that I've met Aaliyah, I've met Sharice, I've met Mr. Johnson, and I met Faustine, and we've been having this conversation. Now, understanding that the political divide that exists right now has pitted us against each other, and it has forced endorsements, and it has forced certain things not to be in favor of those who have a voice for the community. So we have to understand that we have to have a coalition, once elected or not elected, to continue to hold people on the board accountable, to continue to hold VD accountable, to continue to advocate for teachers who are wrongfully terminated. We, as people up here right now, as concerned citizens, which we are at this moment, have to continue. And I think the people that are here, as you speak to their character, as you speak to their integrity, the people up here are continuing to do the work. They're going to continue to stand up for what is wrong. I know Mr. Johnson, he talks about his daughter and how he goes every day and he advocates for his kids and the other kids that he doesn't even have to care for. He continues to have these conversations. And you know the conversation he had with me earlier? He says, Snap, I'm pushing you. I know when people ask, I'm pushing you. And it's not because I asked him to. It's because we've had these conversations and we are people. We are intentional about what we're doing. And we have to understand that it's no longer about popularity at this point. You have to understand this is about our children, our teachers, and our community. If you are impressed by sound bites, and you are impressed by endorsements, and you are impressed by money, you are part of the problem. We have to look at the issue that exists right now in Detroit. We continue to only look at districts as a political student in college. You're taught to look at the different dynamics of community, understanding that most of us are going for high propensity voters, and we're not looking at the people that are in the canal streets. We're not looking at the people that are on Chalmers. We're not looking at the people that are behind East English Village, because they don't count as votes, and that is wrong. That is wrong. You got to understand that we are people and we have to empower people. At the end of the day, make sure you grab your brother, grab your sister, and we continue this fight.
His mic is hot. I just want to add to that. Everything he said, I agree with. The other point I want to make is that as far as my concern, I have been a foot soldier in this game for a very long time. If I don't get it on the board, it's okay. I still got fights to make, and I still got energy to burn. I'm not trying to get on this board just because. I just see a need that if you find better soldiers than me, I have no problem with that. All I know is I just want the best, the strongest soldiers to do what we said we were going to do. get on that board, get this system back in order, and make it happen for my children. I'm just as good as, even when I retired, I still went up to Malcolm X every other week. I'm never gonna leave my children, whether they're in school or just in the neighborhood. So you're gonna get my support. And I know that Aaliyah Moore is gonna be on your head, because she goes to a lot of them. I don't really go as much as I used to. I'm really getting old for this, but if you want me there, I will fight hard with what I bring to the table. Other than that, I agree with what Mr. Snap said. Snap.
On behalf of the Detroit Public Schools, we would like to thank our sponsors, Spectrum Law Firm, Native Son, Dr. Telford, Imperial Market, Motor City Apparel, Glenfield Market, and the Curvy Girl Project. And we would also like to thank you as the audience to come out, and we would also like to thank each candidate for coming up and showing out today. And us students, we are counting on you guys to vote because we cannot do it ourselves. So we pray that y'all will literally pick the best of the best. Good night, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Yay! Woo!
Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thank you for coming.